Question 61. Azure HDInsight, an example of a software as a service SaaS offering. Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option B, no. Explanation. No, Azure HDInsight is a PaaS offering. From the official Azure documentation, run popular open source frameworks including Apache Hadoop, Spark, Hive, Kafka, and more. Using Azure HDInsight, a customizable enterprise-grade service for open source analytics. Effortlessly process massive amounts of data and get all the benefits of the broad open source project ecosystem with the global scale of Azure. Easily migrate your big data workloads and processing to the cloud. Next question. Every Azure region is composed of a set of data centers. Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option A, yes. Explanation. A region is a set of data centers deployed within a latency-defined perimeter and connected through a dedicated regional low-latency network. Each Azure region has a minimum of 3 availability zones. Next question. Select the 3 types of storage tiers for Azure Blob storage. Option A, infrequently accessed tier. Option B, archive storage tier. Option C, deep sleep tier. Option D, hot tier. Option E, cold tier. And the correct answer is option B, archive storage tier. And option D, hot tier. Explanation. Azure Storage offers different access tiers, which allow you to store blob object data in the most cost-effective manner. The available access tiers include: Number 1, hot storage, optimized for storing data that is accessed frequently. Number 2, cool storage, optimized for storing data that is infrequently accessed and stored for at least 30 days. Number 3, archive storage, optimized for storing data that is rarely accessed and stored for at least 180 days. With flexible latency requirements on the order of hours. Next question. Which of the following would you need to set up alerts for outages or when autoscaling is about to deploy new instances? Option A, Azure Service Health. Option B, Azure Bastion. Option C, Azure Advisor. Option D, Azure Monitor. And the correct answer is option D, Azure Monitor. Explanation. You can use Azure Monitor to set up alerts for key events that are related to your specific resources. Next question. If you want to raise the limit or quota above the default limit, dash. Option A, upgrade your support plan. Option B, define a blueprint in Azure Blueprint to implement this change. Option C, open an online customer support request at no charge. Option D, create an Azure policy defining this increase, but it will be charged. And the correct answer is option C, open an online customer support request at no charge. Explanation. If you want to raise the limit or quota above the default limit, you can open an online customer support request at no charge. Next question. It's possible to deploy an Azure VM from an Ubuntu system by using PowerShell in the Cloud Shell. Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option A, yes. Explanation. Tip. Most such questions mentioning operating systems, Ubuntu, Linux, Windows, Mac OS, are to create confusion. If you can open a browser, you can access the Cloud Shell, which gives you access to Bash or PowerShell. Azure Cloud Shell is an interactive, authenticated, browser-accessible shell for managing Azure resources. It provides the flexibility of choosing the shell experience that best suits the way you work, either Bash or PowerShell. Next question. Which of the following is not a cost-saving solution? Option A, Use Azure reserved virtual machine instances. Option B. Choosing an appropriate instance type for a VM. Option C. Load balance your virtual machines to manage incoming traffic. Option D. Using a pay-as-you-go subscription. And the correct answer is option C. Load balance your virtual machines to manage incoming traffic. Explanation. Load balancing is used for performance optimization and not cost saving. Load balancing refers to evenly distributing load, incoming network traffic, across a group of backend resources or servers. Azure Load Balancer operates at layer 4 of the Open Systems Interconnection OSI model. It's the single point of contact for clients. Load Balancer distributes inbound flows that arrive at the load balancer's front-end to back-end pool instances. These flows are according to configured load balancing rules and health probes. The back-end pool instances can be Azure virtual machines or instances in a virtual machine scale set. A public load balancer can provide outbound connections for virtual machines inside your virtual network. These connections are accomplished by translating their private IP addresses to public IP addresses. Public load balancers are used to load balanced internet traffic to your VMS. An internal or private load balancer is used where private IPs are needed at the front end only. Internal load balancers are used to load balance traffic inside a virtual network. A load balancer front end can be accessed from an on-premises network in a hybrid scenario. Next question. Availability for all Azure services is calculated over a dash billing cycle. Option A, weekly. Option B, monthly. Option C, quarterly. Option D, yearly. And the correct answer is option B, monthly. Explanation. From the official Azure docs, availability for all Azure services is calculated over a monthly billing cycle. Click here to download SLA for most Microsoft Azure services. Next question. The private preview phase for a service includes formal support. Option A, no. Option B, yes. And the correct answer is option A, no. Explanation. No. Private is a phase when Azure invites a few customers to take part in early access to new concepts and features. This phase does not include formal support. It is not available to the general public as well. Next question. A company has approached you to help them plan an architecture that would be capable of capturing data from millions of connected devices and securely storing them for analysis. Which of the following two services would you include in the project proposal? Option A, Azure Notification Hubs. Option B, Azure Data Lake. Option C, Azure Express Route. Option D, Azure IoT Hubs. And the correct answer is option B, Azure Data Lake, and option D, Azure IoT Hubs. Explanation. From the official Azure documentation, Azure IoT Hub is a managed service hosted in the cloud that acts as a central message hub for communication between an IoT application and its attached devices. You can connect millions of devices and their backend solutions reliably and securely. Almost any device can be connected to an IoT hub. Several messaging patterns are supported, including device-to-cloud telemetry, uploading files from devices, and request-reply methods to control your devices from the cloud. IoT Hub also supports monitoring to help you track device creation, device connections, and device failures. IoT Hub scales to millions of simultaneously connected devices and millions of events per second to support your IoT workloads. For more information about scaling your IoT Hub, see IoT Hub Scaling. To learn more about the tiers of service offered by IoT Hub, check out the pricing page. IoT Hub can further route messages to Azure Data Lake storage. Next question. Azure Dash are unique physical buildings located all over the globe that house a group of networked computer servers. Option A, regions. Option B, data centers. Option C, availability zones. Option D, geographies. And the correct answer is option B, data centers. Explanation. From the official Azure docs, Azure data centers are unique physical buildings located all over the globe that house a group of networked computer servers. Next question. Suppose the lead architect in your company has asked your team to implement a PaaS-based solution in Azure for a quick proof of concept POC to senior management. One of your colleagues goes ahead and creates Azure Event Hubs and Azure Blob storage. Would you agree with this implementation? Option A, yes. Option B, no. And the correct answer is option B, no. Explanation. Even though Azure Event Hubs falls under PaaS, Azure Blob Storage is considered IaaS and therefore our requirements are not met. Next question. In a private preview, Azure invites all customers to take part in early access to new concepts and features. Option A, false. Option B, true. And the correct answer is option A, false. Explanation. From the official documentation, private preview, during this phase, we invite a few customers to take part in early access to new concepts and features. This phase does not include formal support. Next question. Azure HDInsight can be used to run popular open source frameworks, including Apache Hadoop, Spark, Hive, Kafka, and more for open source big data analytics. Option A, no. Option B, yes. And the correct answer is option B, yes. Explanation. Yes, Azure HDInsight is an enterprise-ready, managed cluster service for open source analytics. You can run popular open source frameworks, including Apache Hadoop, Spark, Hive, Kafka, and more. Using Azure HDInsight, a customizable enterprise-grade service for open source analytics. You can also effortlessly process massive amounts of data and get all the benefits of the broad open source project ecosystem with the global scale of Azure. Easily migrate your big data workloads and processing to the cloud. Next question. Which of the following can you use to filter traffic to and from an Azure Virtual Network? Option A, Azure Advanced Threat Protection ATP. Option B, Azure Firewall. Option C, Azure Network Security Group. Option D, Azure DDoS Protection. And the correct answer is option C, Azure Network Security Group. Explanation. You can use Azure Network Security Group to filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in an Azure Virtual Network. A network security group contains security rules that allow or deny inbound network traffic to or outbound network traffic from several types of Azure resources. For each rule, you can specify source and destination, port and protocol. This article describes properties of a network security group rule, the default security rules that are applied, and the rule properties that you can modify to create an augmented security rule. Thank you for watching this video. Buy our AZ 900 premium questions with 50% off. Check link in the description.